Hey Meg, it's Sean.
Hey, what's going on?
They just there's limited amount of time to get any of this done, and they just keep dragging it out and dragging it out. And now because they changed agencies, it's Penny used to work with the people at Region One.
Mhm,
They kind of took over for Region One. The Cirrus House did,
mhm.
and they know all the same people. It's just a pain in the butt going through all of this and having them. They were supposed to do an assessment on me, uh, like 2 weeks ago. I don't know what's going on with all that. They're supposed to have me do it on Monday. I think I think next Monday is my birthday. I'll have to see.
It's the eight. Yeah, next Monday's the 18th.
Yep, that's my birthday. I had to get one of them iced coffee things from down at Pumpkin Pantry.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I keep calling all these places, and they all keep telling me to call other places. One of the places they told me to call today is, let me see, I got it written down. Disability Rights Nebraska. Now I'm certain that I've called them on my own. Have you called them with me too?
I've called them on my own. What did they want you to call them for?
Um, about the legal stuff I'm going through.
Okay, yeah, that's not gonna help you.
Yeah, it seems like nothing's helping. Like we've tried everything there is to try. I'm still going through the motions. I'm still filling out the paperwork. I'm still doing what I'm supposed to do, but that's the thing is, the way it's supposed to work and the way it actually works for people like me are not the same. I keep falling through the cracks. And
So, can
the
I ask you a question?
solution everybody has is for me to move again and again and again and again. And like I can't see my loved ones. I don't see how anybody could not understand that. I don't get to see my loved ones.
Right.
That was the problem before Natalie was killed. I could not see my loved ones. I didn't do anything wrong, and I was being punished for things that other people did. So I told on those other people, and then Natalie got shot in the head. Like, that's.
Mhm.
I was in the process of trying to get a lawyer all the way back then.
Right.
I was going through the motions are the same in every single state. You jump through all these hoops. They're expensive. It takes more resources than you have and more resources than you ever get out of them in order to just end up right back where you started, if not worse. Like government programs don't help people.
Yeah.
Now, I do know that there's a lot of services out there that help single moms, but you have to be number one, you got to be single. Number two, you got to be female. Number three, you got to have kids. I mean, those are very specific criteria for those groups. There aren't really any groups like those for men, and the ones that are, they don't get nearly the kind of funding that the female groups get. I mean, it's a big, giant mess.
Well,
Even the women's services, there's 14 women's services in Boulder, Colorado for every single co-ed service. So even in Boulder, Colorado, women have problems getting by. Even in Boulder, Colorado, they are victimized a crap ton in that situation. But that's the thing about the help that they have available is that the help doesn't really help. It just costs you in the long run. My friend Victoria, she just had her daughter taken from her. She had to live in a vehicle for a year and a half, and she was, you know, paying her rent and moving in places, but the problem is, like, she got bad credit, so she had to move in with people who would let her move in for cheap rent, and a lot of them had expectations of her that she wasn't okay with.
Mhm. So,
I don't know how to explain to them there's a time limit, and I don't know how to get them to understand that I need them to listen and understand my situation.
mhm.
That would be a lot more important than them stopping me and giving me suggestions all the time, which once they're aware of what's going on a little bit better, their suggestions will be great. But the thing is, that's why Tamara works so well, was because Tamara knew what was going on. She knew the story up till the point that she left, you know, from working there. So that was well before Natalie was killed. She's missed out on 4 more years of abuse, but that's all right. You know, she did her job and she knew how to do her job and she did it effectively and she did it well. And Jen Beebe had no clue what was going on and she was too busy giving suggestions to listen. Whereas Tamara, having experience, knew how to listen.
Well, it's hard for me to not try to break this down into what parts are going to work and what parts aren't going to work. I mean, I know the answers to some of those things, but I don't know how to go through that conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there are things that I don't think that that are in their wheelhouse or in their, that they're just not going to be able to address or deal with. And so I don't want you to lose out on the stuff that they can address and deal with because they can address and deal with all of it. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing about it being a therapy office is that I should be able to have actual therapy instead of be redirected, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
there's I need them to be aware of the situation and whether they keep telling me their excuse every single time is that they're not a lawyer, they can't do any legal stuff, and that is 100% bullshit. They can be subpoenaed to court.
Okay. But isn't what she's, and I'm not arguing, I'm just trying to get my brain wrapped around this. My understanding of what they were supposed to do is there is a counseling portion of it, but the other portion of it is trying to get you into an apartment. And that was supposed to take precedence over everything else because you can't be homeless and do any of this stuff. So my understanding was that they were going to do that HARP or whatever that application was to try to get you into an apartment. If that was the,
Well,
is
see,
that
with you, you understand that. That's exactly the point that I'm trying to make. Like you are aware that obviously nobody's going to be able to do any of this without a place.
right?
You know, when they're constantly trying to find a place to live, where do you find time to do anything else? And then I
Right.
really, you know, my credit history has gone completely to crap since Natalie was killed. Hey,
Right.
chill. Anyway, like you understand that. That's something that you understand better than most people because most people are too busy giving ideas. They had this great, wonderful idea to call this place that I probably never called before, and then lo and behold, I get this number, this Pillage Rights, Nebraska. It's already in my phone.
Right. Yeah. No, that's not going to work. So, can I ask you, did they do the application for the grant to try to help you get an apartment today?
No.
Okay. So what happened today?
They told me that they're limited on what we're allowed to do because I haven't done the. We did the intake paperwork, but there's supposed to be like a. I'm supposed to sit down with Marcia Estrada and get like assessed or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The big thing though is getting them to actually look at stuff instead of listen to me talk, because it'd be a lot easier if I could just show them. And with almost everybody that's actually come around, it's been because they got to actually see the evidence. They got to see the threats against me. They got to see the stuff from the hospitals. They got to see the stuff that I. It's really stressful. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So, um, if Marsha's the one that does the assessment, I think I should ask them. You can get Kimball transportation all the way to Scottsbluff, and if the issue is they're only in Sydney once a week, I don't know why additional appointments can't be set up in Scottsbluff. Yeah, it sucks. Yeah, it's further away. Yeah, you're stuck in the car for longer, but at least you're not doing this once a week thing. Am I off on that?
Well, I don't know if they'll be able to accept me for more than one visit. Like, the reason that they only come down one day a week is probably because they're busy as hell in Scotts Bluff. We could always ask, though.
Okay, because I know the Kimball transportation thing will go to Scottsbluff, so I could ask that. It's not ideal, I know, but so today your appointment was just taken up and you guys talking and her trying to give you resources for the legal stuff.
Yeah, that one they gave me the number for, Disability Rights Nebraska. Do what?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just agreeing, yes.
The Disability Rights Nebraska thing, she typed up a short application on there.
Yeah.
That's the thing about my rights being violated the way they are. There's like the ACLU. Uh, that's the biggest problem is that because I got called mentally ill, I don't get heard. Someone else does have to speak for me, and every time I've tried to get a hold of the ACLU because their phone number, it tells me that it's like a lot of those other phone numbers. They say that it's not an actual line. You can't call them back and shit stuff.
Right.
Sorry.
That's okay.
And
So tell me if I'm wrong, but I think it's Penny at least does not need to consider or think about or talk about the legal stuff. She
right.
should be working on the application for the apartment thing. I wouldn't even talk to her about the legal stuff.
Well, we can't get the apartment thing until I have my disability money back, and in order to get my disability money back, there's a bunch of hoops that got to be jumped through.
I think we've already jumped through all those.
I'm hoping, but the thing is, if they're making me start all over, I'll have to be set up for appointments and go in and do that. Like, none of the stuff that I have is recent. That going in to see Angie, that was just uh, basically to get referrals to specialists because like it's just a small clinic here. It's
right.
Basically they took somebody's old office and now it's a clinic that's got 8 people in it instead of 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean it's just the bare minimum of tools and materials. I don't think like they don't have an x-ray, they don't have none of that. It's just a couple of tables and
Gotcha. I don't. What do I know? Social Security is. I'm battling them for my own son and one other person already. Anyway, I don't remember that they require anything physical like that, like what I was talking about, like a general physical with all the stuff. That was more of the psychological or whatever evaluation, unless it's a physical, unless you got your SSI because of a physical issue, and not something else. then they might require all that.
Well, I don't know. None of my paperwork actually says what it is that qualified me, but it does list the stuff that they have that I have been diagnosed with. So it could be a combination of both physical and mental disabilities.
Okay. Um, so when I think about it, I'm just going to throw out what I'm thinking. So when I think about it, you've got the time limit on what you want to be able to give to Woods or whatever. I think it's Sergeant Woods or Inspect whatever his name is.
Yep.
I don't know what the statute of limitation is on that whole situation. I would imagine you're well within that, and so, but I guess we could ask, um, just kind of just to kind of stall on a couple of things so that this other thing can take precedent. I don't know if I could ask Jones, like how long do you have to get stuff together for that statement? How long can you put it off? How long can you not put it off? So
Well,
we have an
I let
actual
him
date.
I let him know that I wouldn't be able to meet with him until after my birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that gives me about a week. He said that he wouldn't be able to until the after the 23rd or the 24th.
Okay, so that's 2 weeks. So it'd be this week and then your birthday week.
Yep.
Okay, so that's 2 weeks. But I would like to ask her just for the heck of it, how long can you actually, like, if you let's just say he's working on getting an apartment, doing some other stuff that he's got to get all this other stuff done. Can we put that off for a month? I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying you want to, but could we? I just want to at least get those dates so that you can. You got too many irons in the fire right now with.
Yeah.
You got to get your mental
That's
health stuff done. You got to get
and that's
Sarah's stuff
the
done.
problem that people haven't understood is that I have all of these things to do. I am completely overwhelmed with all of it.
Right.
Having help in person is pretty important, but people are too busy telling me how to think and how to feel and making excuses mostly in person. Once they get to know the situation better, they understand not to a little bit better, but
I think too. I think there's a problem with, not a problem, but I think some people want to listen and want to hear it, and yet they know at the same time that they are not able to do anything about it, and then the only thing they have that they can do is try to throw a number at you. And so instead, it would be better to just say, I literally can't do anything about that. I can do this. Let's focus on this. And I don't know if that would work or if you would want that or not, but it's, like
well,
even like I'm thinking, go
that's
ahead.
where this is all going awry. Is that I've got to call 30 different agencies that are all supposed to do these things. This is literally what their websites say that they do, and I call them up and they tell them that's not what they do. All they do is give out more numbers. But the
I
other thing is that it's kind of like dominoes. Everything has to be in place, or it's not going to fall right.
Right.
And that's where all of the major issue right now is that a lot of the police have actually stolen, or once their stuff has been held for a year, they can destroy their body cameras and things like that. And the fact is, all of that has to do with this situation. All of it, every bit of it. And people wanting to cut it up into little bits and pieces, that doesn't work because it completely cuts out their motivations. There's a reason that these people are doing these things.
Well, and I think there's also a little bit of nobody wanting to say sometimes it's not possible, or it's what I mean. And I'm not saying that I know that because I don't. What do I know? But I'm just saying I don't know. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the thing about having evidence. A lot of people have treated me like I'm making all this up, but then I have the evidence. How can I be making it up if I have the evidence?
Right. Right.
The things that I said people were telling me, I recorded them and I made sure that I had it recorded and saved for a reason because
Right.
through all of this, people have been harassed and threatened and manipulated by the police, by law enforcement in the state of Colorado and in the state of Nebraska. I mean, they knew that I had gone to both of those departments, the one in Boulder as well as the one here in Chapel, about that situation on multiple occasions.
Mhm.
And they're not going to get in any trouble for that, for admitting it. They shouldn't have been an issue in the least bit for them to admit that they didn't do their jobs. But then again, it's a sheriff's department here.
Mhm.
It has nothing to do with how hard you worked in law enforcement. It has to do with how popular you are. So we got a sheriff who's, God, he doesn't even have to do his job. He literally manipulated the system to have me locked up for trying to turn him in. He worked together with Leslie Snell to make sure that I was locked up. He worked together with his deputies to make sure that I was locked up. And in all of that, they all knew it was BS. They knew what they were doing is wrong. There is no way that they didn't. I'm sorry for going off like this.
No, that's okay. My main concern for you, Sean, it's been the same all along. And when I don't respond to that stuff, it isn't because I don't care. It's because there's literally nothing I can say that would change it or make it any better, and or that I could understand it or do anything about it. My main worry for you is that you are able to get a place of your own where you are safe and secure, and you have time to breathe, to focus on the things you need to focus on. And I'm part of my reason for texting you stuff is to not put pressure on you, but just because I'm so worried that if this stuff doesn't go well through Sarah's house to get you into an apartment of your own, that I don't even know what to do. I mean, I don't see anything working without you having a safe place. I just don't see it.
And I've
Maybe I'm
said
wrong.
that
I've
since
never.
day one. That's, right after Natalie was killed, I was saying that to literally everyone. Hey, I don't have a safe place. I was forced into homelessness because she died.
Yeah. And so to me, it's not like I'm trying to say all this 5, 6, whatever years of horribleness isn't to be addressed. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that you'll just nothing. In my opinion, can happen without you in an apartment or in some sort of safe place that is yours. And then beyond that, your rent gets auto drafted so that nothing can happen, so that it's secure, it's legit secure, that's just yours, And so it's like all this other stuff is critical. I know I'm not trying to minimize it, but I'm just really worried. These people seem to be the only connection to that. We have exhausted everything in this state. I know I can tell you exactly what disability rights can and can't do. I've talked to them numerous times. I can tell you exactly what DHHS can and can't do. I've talked to them numerous times. So
The thing that they can all do is testify in court. When I first started working with Tamara before Natalie was ever killed, me and Tamara were discussing about my safety and what it would take to get me safe, and we both agreed that getting a diagnosis and getting all of the paperwork filled out so that I would actually be protected by the laws was the most important thing. When she quit her job, there was like a month and a half where I didn't have anyone assigned to my case. And then in addition to that, there was 5 of our meetings that were missed. I missed one of them. They missed the other 4, and they were saying that they were gonna cancel me from their program because of that. Like, hey, I didn't miss 5 times. I drove all the way, from Denver, Colorado, up to Sydney, Nebraska, so that I could actually, go see my therapist for one of those appointments that they didn't show up. It was a no call, no show. With a lot of my public pretenders, I've been dealing with no call, no shows. You know, I mean, how am I supposed to be able to organize a defense with somebody who's not interested in defending me and who is letting me know outright that they're not interested?
And I'm not saying that these agencies can't be asked, or I have no idea. I don't know the law, but that they can't be subpoenaed or whatever to say, yes, he called, yes, he did this, yes, she did that. I'm not denying those things. I'm just saying that they will not. I know what kinds of cases they will take on, and they won't take on anything criminal. And
And that's the
so,
thing, is that that's how I am completely fucked, is that it's both
right,
criminal and civil.
right.
And that's why, ma'am, they literally abuse the law to cut me off from literally every avenue. This is absolutely a case that they will take on. The thing is that they don't have any, pressure to do so. There's no reason for them to do so. People don't seem to care. Now, the
Well,
other thing is there's a lot of stuff that, there's a lot of people that do care. And I've been taking screenshots of that stuff so that I can show, hey, this right here is the stuff that I have to deal with all of this over. This is people's opinions on this. This is how many of these sites were, had come out this year. Have I sent you a copy of the letter from Dr. Hartman?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, when I send it to you, I might be able to fax it. I'm still trying to figure out the fax part, but once I get that figured out, I'll be able to send it to you. You'll be
Okay.
able to see that almost everything that they tried to pretend I was crazy for saying, you've already seen evidence of or gone through me with. I mean, we've been through this.
Well, I'm not saying anything bad about. I mean, I actually had 2 or 3 different people call back from disability rights, really thinking hard about what could be done or who could do something, or and so I've got respect for them and what they've said. And I had several of them call me back, like I said, and just say they felt the same way, like this is terrible that somebody's fallen between the cracks, and every way I turn, and even the civil lawyer person that the public defender suggested called back and said, we can't take this on. We just don't have the bandwidth to do it. And so then you got to try to just hunt down lawyers to.
And lawyers need people who will speak up and people who remember important details, and most of those
Well,
people are gone. I mean,
yeah.
you write a lot of stuff down and you remember a lot of details, but like there's a lot of people that were involved in this, a lot of people that I had to try to trust because I couldn't get any help from law enforcement. I mean, that's all stuff that you shouldn't have had to deal with any of this. And that's what all of my paperwork proves. That's the reason for getting all of this paperwork and filling out all these pieces of paper to get permission from these people and those people and everybody in between, is so that I can actually prove that I've been telling the truth the whole time. I mean, you've gotten to see a lot of it, and I'm sure you didn't go through every one of those screenshots that I send. There's no way that you would have time, but you've seen enough of it. You've been involved in enough of it. They tried to pretend like I was crazy for saying that you were muted in all of my court dates. Like, dude, you know, it's a fact. It happened. She was muted. She could not speak. How is that supposed to work? And then
Well,
there's
the bottom line is they don't care about what I have to say. Otherwise, they would have allowed me to say. You know what I mean?
well, because of my communication issues, they're supposed to have somebody to do that, and they don't. My lawyer should have taken the time to understand what was going on, and Mr. Harvoy, like, he didn't take anything you had to say seriously. And then the doctor that called you while I was there, the one that you talked to, all he could remember about you and his conversation was the thing about housing. And I was like, well, that's screwed up because she's been involved in a lot of different stuff You know,
Right.
he's saying that you guys had an extensive conversation, and literally the only part that he could remember was the part that he was trying to pull out of his backside to make it okay that he wasn't going to do nothing. With the cops calling me schizophrenic, and that's literally what happened both in Colorado and here. As soon as the cops told them that I was schizophrenic, I was automatically on the schizophrenic bandwagon, and they didn't hear a word I had to say after that. And they even tried to pull the same stuff, like Robert Harvoy treated me like I was schizophrenic the whole time. You know, there's a big difference between being intelligent and being schizophrenic. There's a big difference between having Tourette syndrome and being a crackhead, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm dealing with is people's ignorance and their bias and their assumptions. But I'm also having to deal with law enforcement doing everything they can to look the other way. I mean, a lot of this evidence that I have to show, you know, it's on the internet, or it's been on national news, or it's been on local news in places like this. Like, I told true stories.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the most complicated part, is that I need people to admit that I'm telling true stories. And I had to record people because they knew that the stories I was telling were true. They were involved in them, but then they just never came forward. They never put the effort forward. And that's the problem with it not being family. With all of these people, if something like this happened to their family, you know, it wouldn't have taken them 7 months to go down and try to do something about it. They would have gone down to the police station immediately. And if there was an issue with the cops not taking my report, well, family would have done something about it. Miss Peaches, when she had issues with stuff like that going on in her family, she got actively involved. With me, it was, well, mostly her playing her video game on her phone while I was trying to tell her what was going on. And her saying that she was going to go places and write things, and she just never did. And then there's the fact that it was across so many jurisdictions. The problem here is, instead of people saying, well, we can't because of this and this, I already know this and this. I already know why it is that it doesn't work, and that's the reason specifically that these people did it that way. The reason that I was shipped out of jurisdiction to mental hospitals or jails in other jurisdictions is so that I couldn't turn in officers in the jurisdiction I was in. If I was trying to tell on somebody in the jail, they'd just pretend like I was suicidal.
I just don't know. I mean, I think that's why people go to the get the heck out of there response, because, but then, like, you will come back and say, and I understand, I have gotten the heck out of here multiple times, and it hasn't worked because you didn't have the sports in place where you were going, and you were taken advantage of by people. And I mean, I just think about even the things that I know about in this state, of people selling you stuff they should have never sold you, and your money going. I can't even. I don't know, John. I just don't know. I I don't know.
When
I
I
mean,
try to explain it, I sound crazy. I need
well,
someone else to explain it to them that, hey, the problem here is that these people manipulated their positions of power and manipulated their understanding of the law in order to prevent this guy from having his constitutional rights.
mm,
But then, you know, it has to be a coordinated effort. It has to be something that all of these places are involved in. So I do have to get all of my paperwork from all of these other places, like Region 1.
yeah,
I got to be able to show all of that. I mean, I have my paperwork from the Chesapeake Hospital. I've had it since I went and got my black car back in 2018. and it was on the floorboards, and it's all multicolored and stuff, but it says on there, it shows where they screwed up. I was severely dehydrated. They put in 2 bags of saline water into me, and it was 0.9% salt, which is a whole crap ton. And I mean, it's not like the situation was not documented. And that was a situation where I left Virginia because me and Natalie were that whole situation with the telephone and me getting dehydrated on my birthday. I mean, it wasn't just the conversations between me and Natalie that, I have screenshot after screenshot of from that area and that period of time and about me getting dehydrated on my birthday. It's also the hospital records that show it. It also shows that they diagnosed me with diabetes mellitus, and I don't have diabetes. I could eat a whole loaf of bread and be fine.
My experience so far has been when I explain it, and I explain that even though there are some things, the way you communicate some things are hard to believe or hard to understand or hard to hear or whatever, that the response comes back to there's no remedy. There's no legal remedy to fix it, or to somehow say, you know what, he was legally right this whole time. These people have to pay or financially or through the criminal system. And so that's the part that that just leaves me stuck. I don't know what to say then. I mean, you'll say, there is no way to move forward without the legal part being done.
Well, that's because, see, every aspect of my life has been destroyed. My credit is trash, okay? So it's not just physical abuse and mental and psychological abuse, and then the separation from, I surrounded myself with positive people when I was in Boulder. In Chapel, Nebraska, good luck. I mean,
Yeah.
But see, when I was in Boulder, when I injured my back, people basically just forgot that I existed because I couldn't help them anymore. I couldn't go and fix their roof for them, or I couldn't go fix their porch, or I couldn't go assemble the new crib that they got, or whatever it happened to be. Like, I wasn't able to do those things, and I was screaming for help, and nobody heard me but Natalie. I mean, me and Natalie became friends because she rescued me. That's not a joke.
Yeah.
But then there's the other part where she was addicted to drugs and she still loved the people that did horrible things to her. She still wanted her dad to love her despite the fact that he raped her, despite the fact that he beat on her. I mean, she still wanted acceptance from her family. I'd love acceptance from some members of my family, but the fact is I'm not going to get it, and I don't go searching for that validation because I know it's not there.
Yeah.
As far as trying to change the laws goes, I mean, that's literally what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to close the loopholes that law enforcement uses nationwide to victimize the most victimized people in America. Boulder, Colorado is one of the worst. I mean, even after what they did to me, they tried to cover up multiple assaults by Waylon Lolatai, and it's documented all over the internet. The reason that I send people the stuff on Waylon Lolatai and Clearview, that was my January of 2018. Getting assaulted by a bunch of people, including Waylon Lolatai, the cops not listening to a thing I had to say, and me being sent to Clearview Behavioral Health. Like they told me at the hospital in Louisville, they said, "All right, well, you're here of your own choice." I said, "Well, if I'm here free of choice, because they wanted to bill me, they didn't want to have to bill the sheriff's department." I was like, "Well, if that's the case, I'm leaving. I got to go fill out police reports." So they pulled out their padded pillows and smashed me to the ground and injected me with ketamine, which you don't put that into a human being. And that screwed my head up for a good 6 weeks. But then instead of allowing me to leave and go make my report against the officer, Waylon Lolatai, they shipped me off to Clearview. Clearview held me for as long as they could. They eventually had to let me go. But being assaulted in Clearview, being assaulted by Waylon Lolatai, and then both of these places have histories of doing exactly what they did to me. Waylon Lolatai already had a history of abusing people before he did that to me, and Clearview had a pretty extensive history before and after. They killed not Waylon Lolatai, they killed Tibor Hatay, injecting him literally with the drugs that they injected me with. The staff there were unprofessional. They acted like children. It's like, the mean kid who calls the disabled kids retards on the playground. It's like being stuck with that guy. That's really not the guy that you want being a teacher of special ed, for damn sure. And that's what it's the equivalent of. The doctor, his name is Dr. Jason West. I saw him maybe 5 minutes the whole time I was there.
Yeah.
The rest of the time, it was a bunch of uncivilized and unprofessional hoodlums running the place. We had one nurse, and her job seemed to be to cover everything up. And then when you see the news segments that are on YouTube, that lady is on those segments basically telling everybody from the media that they can F off.
Yeah. These conversations are hard because there's like about 100 questions I want to ask, but I don't want to go down rabbit holes that aren't productive for you or that don't help get you, safe with your money and in a place where you can live. And so it's just really tough because there's a crap ton of questions I'd like to ask you, and I don't want to waste your time.
Yes, ma'am.
And yet there's still, I think I'm still looking for the aha moment of what would make this worth it. I mean, I understand well, let me take that back because that sounds bad. Just what would get you on the path to doing what you were meant to do, which is help people and not hurt yourself in the way. You know what I mean?
Yes, ma'am.
You need to be freed up to do what you're supposed to do, and you're supposed to help people. But you can't help people if you're dying yourself, because you can't, because the panic and the other stuff and all the pressure and the 50 different things and the different, just all these things coming at you. And I'm the kind of person that I just want to, I'm a listener, but I also want to try to make a path and, break it down and, tick it off one thing at a time. And also just my experience with autism of you can't just verbally talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk to somebody, because at some point you got to write it down, make a plan, or you're just adding to the problem.
Yes, ma'am.
And so, and there's things that I agree with, things that I don't agree with, and that doesn't really matter because it's not my life, it's your life. And so I'm kind of stuck here because I just want to really bad ask questions that I just, I don't know.
Well,
you'll go ahead.
Once we get a little bit further along in it, it might be easier to know what questions to ask. And that's a lot of the stuff that you understand that most people don't, means that you ask better educated questions. Like the more you got to understand my situation, the better it got. It was easier fighting past your assumptions just because you're more familiar with autism. I think is what it comes down to. I mean, you've been through the system, not like the same way as me, but right now sort of, because when you got somebody who's disabled, it's a lot of paperwork, it's a lot of appointments, and it's a lot of really bad screw ups. I was
Yeah.
supposed to get disability according to my dad when I was 18, but he didn't help me to get it. It was just me, and I kept getting denied because I was a single white male under the age of 25 with no dependents.
Hmm.
And then after I was 25, I was still a single white male with no dependents. And I was homeless, and what it all comes down to is that there's a lot of help if you've got resources, but when you have no resources, there is no help.
Well, and if you have to spend all your time spinning your wheels about something, that the help that does come just says, "Oh, I'm not doing this because this is too big of a mess." Then there's those lost opportunities, and that's what I hate for you and that's why I'm so tied into this serious thing is because that's happened in the past where people will get far enough in and they're like, "This is too massive of a thing," and I just can't do it. So even the parts I could do, I'm not going to do because I can't do it.
All right. One thing to explain, a lot of people say, just take care of one situation at a time. But then like with the Sears house, I had to fill out 3 or 4 different types of pieces of paper for them, plus trying to get the disability stuff sent. Um, I mean that's other stuff that has to get done in order
Right,
to do what Sears House wants me to do.
right.
That's just for Sears House, and then there's what I got to get done for Inspector Woods, and then or Investigator Woods, and then there's the stuff that I got to get together for the 1983 paperwork, and then there's all of the evidence that I have to go through, and like there's no way that one person is going to be able to do all this and they know it.
Right.
The problem is that they intentionally overwhelmed me right after Natalie was killed. I explained to the officers, and so did Miss Peaches. Her name is Kayla Trujillo. She explained to them as well how they could get the most effective information out of me. And instead of doing it that way, they did exactly what it is that Miss Peaches and I told them was not a productive way to do it.
Right.
That's one of the things with Miss Peaches and I where it created a rift is she said, or her boyfriend said, well, she went in with you 3 different times. She never went in with me. I was alone every single time. The first time that I went to talk to the police, it was Detective Erica in Aurora. And then the second time that I went and talked to him, I think it was the same place. The third time that I went and talked to him, I went down to the police station all the way over in Adams County. And while I was there, Miss Peaches and some of her family went down there too. But they were in a different room the whole time. I saw them through the window just once when they walked by. I mean, I was alone the whole time. And I had tried to explain to Miss Peaches, hey, when you talk to me, it needs to be one on one. And number two, like, when I have to go talk to somebody professional, I need somebody there for my own safety because it's too easy for people to say whatever they want after the fact. If you don't save evidence of it happening during the fact or have a witness there and handy, you're SOL. And that's one of the reasons that I started collecting, all of these recordings is because so many people were telling me one thing and doing another. After I spent all of my resources believing them, I was out of money. The thing is that a lot of those people committed felonies.
Well, when you talk about the loved ones that you can't see anymore, are they still where they were, or are they dispersed?
A lot of them are dead now. Since 2018, like right after Natalie died, people just started dropping off like flies. A lot of my witnesses are dead. Mobley's dead. Janine Barrett's dead.
Were they also homeless?
Some of them. Anna Hunka's dead. Brianna Ingersoll's dead. Rory Jepson's dead. There's a lot of dead people. I mean, you don't live long when you're homeless anyway. It's not like it's a big surprise with most of them, but it's just the sheer quantity of them. And it's not like people are going out and murdering them. I mean, a couple of them maybe. Anna Hunka, she might have been beaten to death by her ex-husband. I don't know. Rihanna had a seizure and it killed her. She was a pretty heavy alcoholic. I got recordings with all these people though. I mean, I have their words saved. They're just not alive to tell their part of the story anymore. It's just the recordings I have of them left. Christine Buhit, she's dead too.
So, it's just really hard. I guess the other thing that just concerns me is all the it's I guess it's what I said before. You're not able to go out and do what you're supposed to do because of all this other stuff. And what if you go to all this effort and they say, well, it doesn't matter. Yeah, I don't know, or the case is closed, or there's no legal precedent, or whatever the answer is. And then you've spent all this time and agony. I worry about that. I hope I'm wrong.
Ma'am, it has to change. And a
Well,
lot of
yeah.
people say that it doesn't work or they can't do this, that, and the other. Every single one of these law enforcement agencies that I worked with and have recorded them saying that they couldn't do something, they have done that exact thing for others. They keep contradicting themselves over and over again. If I try it the first way they told me, then they tell me, well, you should have done it this way. And it all comes back around to them telling me the way that I tried to do it in the begin with. The thing is, if they tell me that, I have to appeal it. I can't just take this abuse for the rest of my life. I can't. This isn't a life.
No, it's not. And that's why I guess when I come back to you cannot return to homelessness in a permanent way because that is no life. And so without somebody helping structure a place for you to live, a way to repair your credit over time, a way to be around positive people and do positive things, that Sean Schwartz can't, make police reform nationwide. I mean, there's a million of you who are out there trying, and
I'm well aware that I can't change it. I'm also aware of facts like parents are the largest group of the voting population. All of these parents, every single one of them thinks that they're alone. Every single one of them is afraid of having their kids took for whatever reason by the government. All of them could work together, but they don't. They all complain about it instead of doing something about it. And that's what I'm trying to explain to people is that I need people to not just talk about doing it, but actually do it. There are things that are effective. A lot of the situations that I was in with officers, these specific officers that I had to deal with were on the news, some of them later for killing people. Literally.
I understand. I do understand. I'm not saying any of it's right. I'm not. And I agree with you there. That isn't my platform there, but there are a lot of things that I would like legislatively to change that are critical too. And I do understand what you're saying. I'm not discounting it.
Well, my case is the only one that I'm aware of that can actually prove that this is nationwide.
I'll do a little internet research for you, but I guarantee you're not the only one.
Well, I can verify and prove with video and audio recordings that this situation and the tactics that they've used in Virginia, they've used in Washington State, they've used in Wyoming, they've used in Nebraska, and they've used in Colorado.
I'm just sad that your life is being expended when you have so much good to give. I just hate it. It's just really hard. And it doesn't matter what I think, or, I'm not trying to say what my opinion is matters. It doesn't, but it's just.
Everyone's opinion matters. One thing that I noticed is that the bullies, they work together. They work together to bully people who are unpopular. And people who are unpopular, well, people always want what they can't have. Those people want to be popular. They're not going to stick up for the other dorks or the other nerds. People don't work together on the things that they need to, and right now I am seeing all of the things that I've been fighting for that I can prove. I can also prove through all of these things that have been national now, and some of them international. These stories are pretty big. It's not just me that they're doing these things to. I mean, Britney Spears spent over $3 million on lawyers over her conservatorship. I don't even have a conservator. And what you're talking about getting somebody for that, that's a conservator. What do you do if you can't trust your conservator? And she had millions of dollars to fight that, and she's still having to deal with it. 13 years over shaving her head. And then I got all these parents of autistic kids and autistic adults saying, "Hey, I don't know what's going to happen when I die. I don't know what my kid is going to do. I don't know what they're going to do to my kid." No, you know exactly what they're going to do to your kid. That's why you're so scared. Not you in specific, but, it's the fear of every autistic parent.
I just.
If it doesn't work, I get on the horse and I try again.
Yeah.
It's either that or take this for the rest of my life, and that's not okay.
I'm just saying, it doesn't matter. If we can we have to pursue this group for counseling. The amount of trauma you've had over your lifetime is crazy, and you have to get into regular counseling. You have to get into a place where you can live and be safe, because you can't do any of this, like we've both said a million times, without that. And
those are the three things that I was working on before Natalie was even killed. The three things I was working on, I'm still working on today. Getting a safe place, getting a lawyer, and getting adequate help as far as the therapist goes. I mean, when I went through all of that with Tamara, that was specifically so that I could defend myself against those predators, specifically so I could defend myself against the people who were stalking me that were Natalie's friends. It's not my fault that they were on drugs. It's not my fault that she was on drugs, and I never should have had to take the abuse for any of the things that people did to her in her lifetime. What her dad did to her, I shouldn't have been punished over. What Tim Beeson did to her, I shouldn't have been punished over.
Do you think that if you get into an apartment, let's just say, which I think you will, and you get some time around some positive people, wouldn't that give you more energy and ability to do the things that are stressing you out right now? All the organization, all the getting it together, getting it organized, getting it.
Yes, ma'am. And not having the pressure of having to try to find a place as soon as possible.
And that's the part I don't know how to help you with, and I don't think there is a way to help you with it. To figure out a way to compartmentalize that part for a couple months, and I don't think there's a way to do that. To where you can pour your whole self into one thing, and I don't think that's possible. So
And that's
uh,
where the Maslow's hierarchy of needs comes in: food, water,
I
and shelter.
I know, but the problem is you've got such a fear, and I totally understand what you're saying about things time ticking against you being able to organize this legal stuff. That I just am afraid it's going to stall out the other stuff. I hope not. I hope that I need to talk to them and ask what the plan is in terms of getting that application done. I know there's no way. I don't think. I mean, maybe they can find an apartment, Jeff, but I doubt it. I don't know. And so I imagine that's looming.
Well, I can prove the abuse that I've gone through, and I can prove that it was ignored. I can prove that the way that I was treated by law enforcement was dependent upon whether or not someone was there and whether or not they were being recorded.
Okay.
The thing is that because I can still prove the abuse, everything that was taken away from me because these guys lied is preventing me from turning them in. It's preventing me from having my income, from having a roof over my head that's mine. You know, I mean, when somebody says, "Hey, you can stay at my place 2 months maximum," and you're coming up at the end of 2 months, going, "I still don't have a place to stay." A lot of
That's
this
why.
stuff, if I'd have had the help before my credit history was screwed up, if I'd have had the help when I was 18, it would have made a difference.
But you are where you are.
Exactly. And that's what most people aren't looking at. They're not looking at the resources that I have to hand right now. A lot of these people, they say, "Hey, have you tried calling this place? Have you tried calling that place?" You've made calls with me, so you know I've called these places. You know that you've called these places.
Well, I
When
can
I
tell you. Oh, go ahead.
when I explain that I've called these places, I get the "Are you sure? Are you sure? Are you sure?" Like, yeah, I'm not retarded.
Well, I can tell you that there is no housing for you if it doesn't go through them. There's none. Not for 2 years at least. 100%. And from what I understand, I thought maybe Section 8 would be a possibility, but I think because the charges and the damages, or whatever the damages equaled up to, that they're not going to even touch it.
Well, here's the thing: there was no charges brought against me,
No,
and
I mean cost of repairs.
well, they didn't have the review like they're supposed to. I also still haven't gotten my paperwork from them. Like I've got repeated calls recorded with them about that paperwork.
Do you think that if the review happened, that you would be able to show that the damage isn't your problem, your fault?
I could show for certain that there was a safety issue that required something be done. I can also prove the wrongdoing of the people who run the place, and I'm not the only one.
Right, I understand that part because you explained that. But I'm saying for the review, if they did a review, do you? Oh, I still don't know what the situation is. I'm not telling you. I'm not asking you to explain it. But if they did a review, would you be able to prove that there was a reason for the damage?
Yes.
Okay. And that reason is someone else caused the damage, or somebody else caused you to cause the damage?
Well, that really comes down to a long story.
Okay. The only reason why I ask is because it affects your housing
I'm
in a
aware of
very.
that. I'm aware of that. We've gone over that probably 10 times at least in this call. I'm
I
aware.
know. All I'm saying is.
And that's the thing, is that nobody should be forced into a situation like that. Nobody. I shouldn't have been forced into that situation. And like when you said about the housing, why I didn't ask you to do it. You've got your own stuff going on, and every time that you tell me what you've got going on, I feel bad asking you. But then there's also the fact that you're literally the only person who's actually helping. With the situation with Sarah's house, I'm hoping that after visiting with me a few more times, and once I start seeing the actual therapist, I'll be able to show her what's going on, and she'll understand. Like, I was diagnosed as schizophrenic by police officers.
Mhm.
Police officers cannot do that. And then everywhere that I went, because police officers were telling people I was schizophrenic, I had to deal with the abuse from that.
Do you
Now, if
know? Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Does the counseling that's at Sarah's house, are they do will they do actual psychological assessments, or will they just do talk counseling? Do you
I
know?
don't know. And that's why. All right, so Sarah's house took over for Region 1, and uh, Marcia Estrada took over for um, Nicole Peralta, who is my old uh,
Mhm.
therapist. So it's new people. They're in the same exact office. They're doing the same exact job, and they know the same exact people. They work with the same exact people. They just have different names.
Right. So do you want? I need to learn more about what they do, because I don't know if being part of that program, or being part of that, going to counseling with that person is part of what gets you housing. If those two are linked somehow,
They
that's
are.
one thing.
If I don't go to the meetings, then they cut me off from their program and they don't help me anymore. You have to go to the therapy part in order to get the help from the Serious House part.
Okay. So the two are connected. Okay.
Yes, I'm just hoping that it comes to something fruitful here soon, because it's not a lot of time and money to get up there and back, but it's still time and money and stress to get up there and back, and it is resources that I they may be renewable in the future, but they're not renewable now because I'm not getting paid my disability money right now.
Yeah.
I was able to call out exactly what they were going to do because I had already been through it, and I'd seen plenty of other people go through it before me, so it's not like it's a new rodeo for me.
Right.
But, in order to change the laws, instead of people saying, well, you can't do it by yourself, I know I can't do it by myself. I'm trying to get help. And
Right.
we've
I know.
seen plenty of examples of people who actually got help because instead of being painted as some sort of a terrible fucking monster, the news painted them in a different light, and it came down to how the news wanted to show it. And
Yeah.
with people not speaking up like they should have, those people did horrible things. And they don't want to see it that way. People want to pretend like if they keep their mouth shut and pretend they didn't see nothing, that magically the problem will disappear. Well, it doesn't work that way. If someone comes to you and says, hey, my dad raped me, and you try to ignore the situation, well, they're probably going to have to go back and take some more abuse from their dad. When they try to go in alone to tell on their dad, they're more likely to get locked up in a mental institution or a detention center than they are to actually get anything done about their abuser. Now, if you have one person in your corner in person, it makes a lot of difference. But then there's all these people who are afraid. Like Laura Nelson is afraid. She's afraid, rightly so. She's afraid of what people in this town think of her. And what people in this town think of her affects her business. And what affects her business affects her ability to keep her son fed. She's heard the threats towards me. She's been present for people threatening me. She's also heard stuff through the store of people doing stuff like that. People brag about shit like that in a town like this.
Mm.
She was gonna, after me and her went in and we spoke with, all right, the officer that I had to speak with here, the deputy, his name is Sean Holloway. That's the one that I had to go to when I was assaulted by um, Robert Warnick. Well, I'd gone to him about Robert Warnick and Cody Selhorst before. with Laura Nelson. And after the situation where me and Laura sat down with him and tried explaining the situation as best as I could, she didn't want to say anything because she didn't want to get in trouble. She didn't want to be targeted. But after we were done talking with Mr. Holloway, she explained to him that she's afraid for her son. I mean, that right there, he should have done something immediately right there, but he didn't. And that was over a year before the situation with being assaulted by Robert Warnick. Now, the other thing is that Laura said that she didn't think that it was a good idea that I go to the Dual County Sheriff's Department. She didn't think that it was safe. She said that she would go in with me possibly to go talk to the FBI all the way in Lincoln. And, Laura Nelson, she would have gone that full, 8, 9 hour drive there and 8, 9 hour drive back to make sure that the FBI did their job. But the thing is, it was all hinging on a maybe. And whenever it's hinging on a maybe, it always ends up no. Or it always ends up taking too much time. It's not that, these people didn't want to come forward. It's that at the very beginning, they were afraid of coming forward, afraid that they would be targeted. And then afterwards, they're afraid that they're going to get in trouble because they didn't come forward about abuse against a disabled person like they're supposed to. In at least 2 of the states that I was in, that's a felony. I've spent a lot of time researching the laws, and through most of this, I mean, the stuff that they ask you to show, I have the evidence that's required to prove these things in court. It's just a matter of not being overwhelmed and having a safe place, and that's what I've been saying since the start, and you understand that. I don't even have to tell you. You say it yourself because you know.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I wish there was something I could do. I do.
Well, you've done a lot. And that's the biggest thing here that needs to be pressed is that it's not that we're not trying. All of these places, we're doing what they say to do. We're filling out what they say to fill out. We're going to the places that they say to go to. We're calling the places that they say to call. We're doing all of the things that we're supposed to do, and it's not working. And that's the point that needs to be made. These things that they're telling me they can't do because it's against the law or whatever, as far as the police goes and all of these other organizations and agencies, they can do those things. They absolutely can. I don't need these therapists to be my lawyers. What I need them to do is look at the situation. And I need them to actually look at the evidence instead of sitting there going, well, he might be telling the truth. He might not be telling the truth. No, they can verify whether or not I'm schizophrenic. That is something they can do in court. But you don't get to that part because they're too busy. They know where you're going with that line of questioning and with that line of speaking, and they want to cut you off every time. And that's the thing that's the biggest issue is that if I have to go in alone, I get cut off an awful lot for people to do those things. When Laura Nelson went in with me, I didn't have that issue. I'm pretty exhausted. Is it right if I let you go?
Yeah. I just have one last question.
Yeah.
Do you want me to look into, well, 2 questions. When you have time or feel like you can, if you want to go over those request forms together, let
Yes,
me know.
ma'am.
Otherwise, I don't know what else to do. I got you all the forms. I got all the addresses. We can go through them on the phone if you want to. So just let me know in the future. Then, second thing is, do you want me to write to Penny and Marcia and ask what the plan is in terms of your assessment and that application for the rent thing?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the last question is, do you want, or did the doctor's office call you back and give you any referrals?
No, they haven't.
Okay.
They're supposed to do that sometime today, but it's already 3:30 here.
Okay. text me tomorrow if you. The sticky part with medical places is they literally won't talk to me. So the only thing I can do is just tell them to call you. I don't know.
And that's the issue with me not having a guardian or anyone to act as a guardian, is that I need somebody to do that, and nobody can do it.
Yeah.
I keep getting told that it has to be family. Well, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to ask a child molester or a rapist to be my guardian. There's no way in hell.
Yeah.
Or a drug addict for that matter, because I already know that, like with Ken and Leah, they're going to take my money and they're going to fucking pretend like I'm a bad person because they robbed me.
Right. Oh. Sorry, talking in the background. I guess that's it. I just hopefully Social Security is going to do something soon. I don't know what else to do other than press these people for that stuff. So that's what I'll do.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
You bet. Bye.
Be safe. Bye. And that's the situation that I'm dealing with.